Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja. Today we are going to discuss why the Solomon Islands have halted the other foreign countries to send their vessels to its dock. Basically, this blockade is being seen as a threat in the Indo Pacific nation region, and China has something to do with it. It is being suspected. So let us move on and talk about the different points that we are going to discuss in this segment. These are the many topics. I will try to be as crisp as possible for you. So as I have already introduced the particular topic, just understand, we will be ensuring that conceptual clarity is made with respect to a deal which was made between the two countries of China and the Solomon Islands, and why is US suspecting this particular deal for the current move that the Solomon Islands have taken. We will also discuss why it is important from the perspective of India so that Indo-Pacific remains free. Let's talk about Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands is a country in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, and it consists of double chain of volcanic islands and coral atolls in Melanesia. So remember, Polynesia, Micronesia and Melanesia. Solomon Islands are a part of the Melanesia. The country comprises mostly of the Solomon Islands, and here you can see the Solomon Islands lying to the south of the equator. Remember this particular point. Except for Buka and Bougainville, because these are autonomous states of the Papua New Guinea. It was earlier a British protectorate, but now it achieved its independence in the year 1978. Honiara is Solomon Islands capital, and it is also the largest city. We will talk about that as well. It is on the north coast of Guadalcanal island, the island which it has. So here is the picture of Solomon Islands. Here is the Honiara or Honaira in the Guadalcanal island of the Solomon Islands, and that is Bougainville belongs to the autonomous region of Papua New Guinea along with Buka. It's not a part of Solomon Islands, remember that. And also you have to ensure that you know certain things about the geography of Solomon Islands, such as where does it lie? I already told you, the south of the equator, and of course it lies close to Australia. That is why it is very strategically important, not only for USA but for countries for which the trade through this region takes place. And here you see that the Solomon Islands are divided into different regions as for their administration, such as De Choiseul, Isabel, Malaita, Guadalcanal, Makira Ulawa, Renel. So these are the administrative islands of the Solomon Islands. Remember about Guadalcanal because Honiara or Honaira is over here. Now, why is it significant, the Solomon Islands? First of all, they lie at a strategic point in the Indo-Pacific region. Specifically, if we talk about the trade purpose, it has a lot of choke points that can be taken, that could be that could be threatened if China puts its base over here, military base over there. Shipping lanes, as I have already told you, number of shipping lanes pass through this region, and this region, if it gets blocked, it could lead to trade distortion. Substantial natural resources. Many Pacific Island nations, they have natural resources in this region, and that is why that is very important to understand. Any country, if it is eyeing these Pacific Island nations, it is of course because they want to explore. Now, no country can exploit because so many international treaties have been agreed to. But if some country has a natural resource, another country come and explore together the natural resources that they have. That is what China is doing. Rapidly increasing, because these countries have a huge cultural diversity. Population is also increasing. They are rapidly increasing their trade. So good relations with these countries are needed, and digital links with the global markets they are getting into more and more. Moving on, let's talk about the deal that the Solomon Islands had with China, which is being questioned right now because Solomon Islands has said that please do not send your naval vessels to our country because we need to overhaul the policy. So the bilateral security cooperation agreement, it was signed between China and the Solomon Islands. Now it was in April 2022. Then it started getting questioned in many regions of the world, specifically from the USA. Basically, it focuses on boosting the island country's national security, and it also calls for cooperation in the fields of human assistance, humanitarian assistance, disaster response, and also efforts to maintain social order among other areas. So these are the, you can say, very open type or very generous type of cooperation agreement. But there is a problem with it. Why? Because here comes the problem, the concern. China can, one of the clause of this agreement says that China can make ship visits to carry out logistical replacement. That means if ship vessels need any sort of replacement with respect to the infrastructure of the ship, China can visit there and have a stopover and transition to Solomon Islands. First that. Secondly, it also said that they can also send Chinese forces to protect the Chinese personnel and major projects. If Solomon Islands has a major investment by China with respect to the assets and other things, China can put their forces over there. This is the concern that Australia, USA, and many other countries over there have. So militarization of this region can take place from this perspective, this clause perspective, and that is why right now Taiwan is already into such a trouble with respect to China. Then we can see why the world is questioning China with respect to it. Economic perspective, let's talk about that. If we have to understand the story, let's go to the background. China has twice elevated China's diplomatic partnership with the Pacific region since Xi Jinping came into the picture. That is 2013. 8 countries in the region are China's comprehensive strategic partners, which is the highest level of partnership mechanism that China has. Then, top Chinese officials have frequently visited the region, Xi Jinping attending summits there in 2014 and 18. So it's not all of a sudden that this agreement took place. It was a long time process and many countries were sleeping at that time. The Pacific Island Forum and the China Pacific Island Countries Economic Development and Cooperation Forum, through this, a lot of engagement has been done by China, not only in the forms of cooperation agreements, but also in the form of economics. Because here you see in the EDCF, China donates annually. It actually not donates, but it gives annually $1 million to the EDCF Secretariat in order to, maintain its, you can say, its hegemony in this region. Then in 2020, China established a $1.9 million fund to support the region's COVID-19 response. China was the second largest donor in the Pacific after Australia. So, of course, they have a reason to be worried about. From the perspective of geopolitics, we understand that Pacific Island region is an important component of the Belt and Road Initiative of China because it is a critical air freight hub. Air freight can be taken from there because connectivity, if it gets into the hands and claws of China, it will definitely try to maintain the hegemony with respect to the air freight over there. So it is also being said that it is an air Silk Road which will join the area of the Pacific Island nations to Central and South America. By 2021, China has signed BRI cooperation document with all 10 Pacific Island countries with which it has established diplomatic relations. That is another point to be noted. Now, only 4 countries in the Pacific Island nation, they actually recognize Taiwan as a separate country. They have diplomatic relations such as Marshall, Nauru, Palau, and Tuvalu. But recently, that is in 2019, Solomon Islands and Kiribati, they changed their stance. They've inclined more towards China and not Taiwan. In case of the Solomon Islands, for that, Beijing promised $730 million financial aid. So, of course, it's a give and take relation to have a sway over these countries. Then, how has it impacted USA? Now, if we talk about the South Pacific, it is seen and it has been seen since a very long time as American lake. This is not what I am saying, but this is what the US President Dwight D. Eisenhower said in 1954. And of course, if any other country is coming into the picture, it is going to irk USA. Commercial and security interest is not new in the Pacific region, in the South Pacific region for America, but it has been there since the year 1825. But of course, the militarization of that area, of troop putting of that area by the US, by the name of US Indo Pacific Command, has taken place after a very long time, since 1825. It under US Indo Pacific Command provides or maintains 375,000 military and civilian personnel, 2,460 aircraft and 200 naval vessels including 5 aircraft carrier strike groups in the command by the US. Not only that, it has, of course, a military base in Guam, the US, but Palau has said that they are ready to host the military base of the USA. So you can see that if China comes into the picture over here, it will be a direct threat to US's presence in this area. All right, moving ahead, let's talk about the Indo Pacific region as an overall, you can say, picture. So it's basically gaining strategic importance from the perspective of geopolitics since the last few decades. And India's role here is very important because India also has shipping routes from here. So India needs to maintain that this region does not become a flashpoint when it comes to China and India's, because India's relation is already so deteriorated with China with respect to the border locking of horns at the LAC. So that is why it is important. So moving ahead, let's talk about the basic countermeasures what USA did, of which India is also part. First is the Quad. Quad is the grouping of 4 countries, Australia, India, Japan, and the USA, in order to maintain an open and fair Indo-Pacific so that each and every country can pass through this region without any harassment. AUKUS is a deal between Australia, UK, and US in order to provide Australia nuclear-powered submarines. This technology transfer has manifested because of the presence of China. They want to ensure that a country which is our ally is strengthened in the Indo-Pacific region. So that is also another countermeasure. Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, because the debt trap policy of China is very threatening. We saw it in the case of Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan as well. So China, what does it do? It develops support by granting loans. Then the return of that from that port, when it is not enough to service the loan, China takes a grab of that place. So in this manner, China tries to maintain its position or presence in that area. So for that, IPEF came into the picture so that such small countries who need sustainable loans can get it through IPEF, of which India is also a part. US President Joe Biden became the first ever US president to participate in the virtual gathering of the Pacific Island Forum leader. This was also a manifestation that they feel threatened from China. It also announced its intention to open its embassy in the Solomon Islands after it was closed in 1993. So you see, there was a vacuum. A vacuum was created for which China came into and filled it. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken also visited Pacific Island nation, and he became the first US Secretary of State in 36 years to visit Fiji. That is also amazing. Another thing, White House delegation led by Indo-Pacific Coordination Kurt Campbell also visited these islands. So these visits are not without any aim, but of course to show that Pacific Islands are an important and integral region of the Indo-Pacific region. Now, if we talk about India's and Solomon Islands relations, diplomatic relations were maintained in 1987, and Solomon Islands established its honorary consulate in New Delhi in 2003. Although we are friendly in nature, we are having a friendly relation, but it's not very, you can say, on your face. It's a low-key relation. And the mission and Port Moresby is accredited to the Solomon Islands. Do look at it, it's your homework. India offered the support of energy-efficient LED bulbs and renewable energy in the form of solar lighting to the country. Apart from that, India also showcased various ways how India can aid Solomon Islands with respect to IT skills and development healthcare. It also provides a program for IT, but Solomon Islands is not making the full use of it. Many seats are lying vacant with respect to training of IT for the Solomon nationals. Now, when tsunami struck the Solomon Islands, India provided a lot of aid to the Solomon Islands in 2007. But this was not enough. India needs to play a more robust role with respect to its presence in the Pacific Island. Such as, you can say, we have already talked about the debt trap policy. India can provide sustainable assistance in terms of economic health, which can be coupled with providing innovative solutions to such countries which are facing the direct threat of climate change, because these are coastal countries, these are countries, island countries, which are surrounded by water from everywhere. So of course, sea level rise is something they must be concerned with. India can come into the picture, and of course change the picture with respect to it, but it can only be done when Indian foreign IFS know that it's important to wake up at this time. India needs to step up its game, setting up for forum for Indo Pacific Islands cooperation so that India can form a common base with such countries. India needs to ensure that Indo Pacific region needs to be open and fair. For that, active role needs to be played. The FIPIC initiative marks a serious effort to expand India's engagement in the Pacific region. Now, many of these countries, Pacific Island nations, they have exclusive economic zone and they have a promising possibility for fruitful cooperation when it comes to energy exploration. In terms of that, India is lagging a lot behind. So in order to ensure that India has a proper mutualistic benefit relations, India has to ensure that it goes into high level foreign visits and also host high level foreign visits. Apart from that, it is important that India has a mutualistic and symbiotic agreement. Not only India should think about itself, but also about the island countries, because they of course have certain sort of economic and power vacuum. Then only a big bully can enter into the picture. Moving ahead, let us talk about our question. Honiara or Honaira is the capital of which of the following countries? Fiji, Dominican Republic, Papua New Guinea, or the Solomon Islands? Answer this question and I will take your names in the next segment. For those who have answered my last question, I am giving you one more chance. To those who have not done so, please answer that question and then I will take your names in the upcoming segment. Okay. Thank you so much for watching and stay updated.